Hi, I'm Cheryl and welcome to the Sewing Room channel. These are gift bags that you can make out of fabric. Make sure you look through your scrap fabric first. Maybe you've got some old Christmas fabric you haven't used. You could take some of those larger pieces and make these big giant bags. Or if you have a smaller piece, you could make this tiny bag. So you have a small, a medium, and a large. And let's get started. Right now my fabric is folded in half like it was when you purchased it off the bolt. So I'm doing the large bag, so you'll need 1.5 yards of fabric. Make sure you go through your stash first to see if you have any unused Christmas fabric that is large enough that you could turn into these gift bags. I have a lot of old fabric, so I decided that that's what I was going to do. Right now, here's my selvage edges down here. I'm going to take one of the selvage edges only, just one, and I'm going to fold it over about 3 inches. And I didn't cut my selvage edges off because this is just a gift bag. You don't need to worry about things unraveling and coming apart and not laying very well. So once you've folded it over about 3 inches, then stitch along this edge all the way from one end to the other, just doing a straight stitch. After you've stitched that edge down, you're going to take the 2 ends, the raw edges, and you're going to bring them together, front sides together. And make sure you line up your edges. Now, if your edges are not very straight, take a little bit of time in this, trim those edges as straight as possible. You're going to be pinning the edges together, but before you pin them all the way across, I want you to go to the edge where it's folded over like this. You're going to take your ribbon. You can use 1/8 inch wide, 1/4 inch wide, or wider if you like. And I would use either 20 or 30 inches. 30 inches is probably better. Fold it in half, and you're going to place it in your seam. So here's my stitch line right here. I'm just going to place it right over my stitch line. Remember, take the folded end, place it there, then fold this back over, place a pin to hold it all in place, and then continue lining up your edge all the way down. And you can either take this through your serger and serge this edge, or at your sewing machine, do a straight stitch all the way down, and then do one of your overcast stitches on the raw edge. If you're not sure what an overcast stitch is, refer to your user's manual. And I have quite a few on my machine, different styles. So here's one of them. If you do not have any overcast stitches that are identified as that on your machine, then use a regular zigzag stitch to bind the edges. Take this side seam and you're going to move it over here to the center. So you're just going to shift your fabric like that. And you could measure to see exactly where your center is. Once you have it centered, then go ahead and do a 1/2 inch seam along this bottom edge. Now, right now you have your seam right here in the center. You've stitched the bottom. Then go to these 2 sides and press a little bit of this fabric. You don't need to press it all the way up to the other edge, but about 6 inches or so, press it. And this helps to mark where the sides are. Then you're going to take the bag, reach inside of your bag. And as you can see, here's my crease where I pressed it. I want to match this crease to where this bottom seam is. Now take your time doing that. And I'm going to flip it over to where I see the bottom seam. And you're making a point, so make sure that it matches your bottom seam. So take your time doing that. And then place a pin to hold it. Now measure from this point going in this way 4.5 inches. So I'm putting my 4.5 inch mark right there on the point, and I'm going to place some pins along here to mark where I'm going to be stitching. So just take a few pins here, you don't need a lot, just so where you can see where that seam is supposed to be. Then once you have it pinned, then go ahead and stitch right across here and backstitch at the beginning and the end. Then go to the other corner and do the same thing. This is the bottom seam of the bag, and this is where you just stitched your corners. Now normally when I'm making a tote bag, I will often just cut these off, but because I want to add some stiffness to the bottom of this bag, I'm going to leave them on, and we're going to stitch them down in a specific way. So here's the stitch line. This is the bottom of the bag. You're going to fold it at the stitch line, taking the point going right along the seam right here. Now reach inside of your bag so that you don't pin the wrong layers of fabric together. Then take a pin and place a pin there, making sure you don't pin the wrong layers of fabric together. Then you still have that crease. Remember where I had you press the sides? Well, here's that crease. So what you're going to do is from this stitch line, you're going to you're going to stitch right along that crease, only through the bottom portion of the bag. Then you're going to go over to this side, this corner, and do the same thing, fold it in, matching that crease to the bottom seam, pin it, and stitch from this stitch line along that folded mark and stitch the bottom piece down. When you go to insert this into your sewing machine to stitch this last little piece down, you want to make sure you have all this other fabric pulled out of the way. Otherwise, it'll get caught in that stitch that you're trying to do along here, and then you'll just have to rip it out again. But once you get it all cleared, it's a fairly easy stitch to do. I'm holding the two corners on opposite side where your boxed bottom is, and it's fairly large on this bag, but this is what you should have, is a nice seam going down this way and down this way. And then you want to check along that bottom seam to make sure you stitch those two little flaps down in the right area. The height of this bag from the bottom corner in one of the boxed corners up to the top here is 36 inches. Now if this bag is too tall and you don't want it quite that tall, you could cut some of it off and then of course fold it over to finish off the edge. Well, the big one's all done, and what I stuffed in here to show you just how big it is two large queen-size bed pillows are stuffed in here, and there's still room for more. So this bag will hold a lot. So here's the medium one again over here, and I put a big bag of polyfill in there. So this holds quite a bit. And then you could have this little one here to hold a small item. Well, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. This is really an easy project. Even if you didn't want to make these to wrap all of your Christmas presents in. This large one here, if you are in charge of delivering toys to needy families, you could make this great big one, or even bigger if you wanted to make it like a Santa Claus bag. Or maybe Grandma and Grandpa could put a lot of little stuffed animals in here for their grandchildren. These are really fun, and don't hesitate to try to make one of these. I think you'll really enjoy it. Now, if you're interested in other type of gift items or other bags you can make, check below your YouTube screen for those beginners sewing projects. Now, don't forget to follow me on Instagram and check out my Facebook page. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time, and happy sewing. If you like the Sewing Room channel, one of the best ways to show your support is to subscribe by clicking on that red subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. And don't forget to click on share to share this video with your friends. And make sure you click on the bell so you receive notifications for all my new videos. I'm Cheryl. This is Manny. See you next time.